What's up, you guys? My name is Steve, and welcome back to Steve's Project Car Garage. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy and you like watching restoration projects, I do hope that you please consider subscribing. Sitting here is the frame of my 1970 Triumph Spitfire named Aria, and today we're going to work on getting the rear of this car rolling. This way we can go ahead and slap some wheels on it and actually move it around the yard. So stick around, it'll be a good video. All right, so we haven't talked about this part of the car for a little bit, and I'm partly responsible for that. In fact, I'm fully responsible for it. I've been waiting on a lot of parts. So to kind of give you a recap of what's going on here is I went ahead and I put new seals on this rear differential. It is now leak-free, which is fantastic. I replaced a bunch of bearings, replaced a ton of seals, and it's good to go. I've gone ahead and also filled it up with some nice fresh fluid while I was at it. I have gone ahead and refreshed this rear spring. I went ahead and I put some new buttons in it, gave it a nice coat of paint, and it's pretty much ready to go. I've got to go ahead and torque this on down though, so that way it's good to spec. But before I do that, I need to go ahead and get these axles set up. So I have a set of the trunnion housings that came with the car originally. I've gone ahead and refreshed those in previous videos, and now it's time to go ahead and throw some grease in them and get this all assembled. So this is where we're going to get started. I had already actually gone ahead and tightened these down to 34 foot-pounds. So these are all actually tightened down on the half shafts. So now it's really up to just going ahead and assembling these trunnion housings and kind of putting this all together. So let me get you set up on a tripod and let's get this knocked out. Sorry about the AC noise, but it's hot and, well, I got the AC, so I'm running it. Before I get started, I wanted to show you guys this. This is a set of rear trunnions that are OE. These are original, and you can't buy these anymore. And so my buddy Steve over in the UK had these for quite a while, and he offered them up to me. So we're going to go ahead and use these when we rebuild these trunnions. So I've got the trunnion housings here. We got the new bearings. These are ready to roll. But this is going to be for the inside here. This is going to be the actual trunnion itself. So we have some plastic bushings. We have the nice original thickness half washers that pretty much encloses everything, and I got some grease. We'll get it all put together, and then we're also gonna instead of just throwing a new bolt in here, we're gonna do a new bolt, but we're also gonna put some anti-seize in here, which is something that was advised to me by my friend Noah. So I think that one of the first things I want to do is get some anti-seize put in here first, just to get that nicely coated. We'll get this put together, and then we're gonna go ahead and fill this all up with grease, slip it on the axle, and let's just see where we stand. All right, to start, we've got the plastic insert and then one of the halves here. And we just got this gasket that we're gonna fit right on over, hopefully.
Many minutes later.
All right, so I've been fighting hard with trying to get the little rubber gasket on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit this. Well, I think I'm going to. All right, so I actually ended up just using a vise to go ahead and squeeze these together. I found that was definitely a little bit better than trying to hammer it. So I went ahead and used the vise and got these guys in. They're in there nice and snug. And so fingers crossed, now I should be able to go ahead and put these rubber gaskets on with relative ease and not have them pop out. So let's go ahead and see if we can do that. Alright, so I went ahead and I used the vise again to go ahead and press in that inner steel tube. So now we got most of this here. It should be time to go ahead and get those bushings put on and then close it up. Alright, so I got that put together. I'll be honest with you, getting those rubbers in here was an absolute nightmare, so I'm holding this nice and tight because I'm terrified to let go of this, because if I do, then they're going to fall out of place. As long as this is held nice and tight, though, they should be okay. So maybe I'm going to put a little bit of tape over that or something real quick until I can get it cinched up. But there we go. Now what we need to do is get these bearings packed with grease, and we can go ahead and install this. So let's get started. Alright, so I have spent a while getting this trunnion in. I had to kind of open up the vertical link a little bit to be able to make it work, but I got it together and I got it in. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and coat this bolt here with some anti-seize, get this guy put in, and then we can go ahead and work on trying to get it all together. Alright, we got that in. Got the bolt through, so we're pretty much ready to go ahead and throw grease in this guy. So I need to go ahead and put a little grease nipple in here real quick. But once I get that in, let's go ahead and pack this guy with some grease, and we'll get it put on and see where we're at. Alright, so we got it all greased up. Time to go ahead and see if we can install this guy. Oh, hold on. Alright, we're going to go get the oil flinger cap put on. We're just going to rest it on there because really don't want to go too far with it. Alright, so it's actually now the next day. I ended up stepping away from this last night because I was just kind of getting a bit frustrated. Things weren't really lining up, going the way that they were supposed to. And so I had to consult my friend Noah. And he and I confirmed that I was pretty much right on the right track. But there's a couple of things I wanted to verify first. And one of these things is the grease flinger. So the grease flinger is supposed to have a distance of about 5.75 to 5.78 inches from the end of the grease flinger to the end of the axle. And so I got my caliper here, and I'm measuring this, and 5.77. So that's pretty much right where we want it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a paint tool. Let me move this over here so you can see, to go ahead and kind of just act as like a gapper. So that way when we go ahead and start closing this up and sealing it with the hub, this will go ahead and provide a nice little bit of space, because you just don't want the flinger to rub against the actual housing for the trunnion. So let's go ahead now and start looking at the assembly portion of things, because everything is pretty much right where it needs to be. But what we need to do now is work on getting all of this put together. So I'll show you what we got. We have the new grease fitting, and oil seal that I actually just pressed in here just by hand. So this essentially will go over this guy, and then we're going to go ahead and put the backer plate on right here, and then that guy will go on, and I can go ahead and tighten that all down. And then also inside of there, it's going to be a paper gasket, which, by the way, I think I got this kit from Moss. They just kind of flung the paper gasket in here and they just squished it all up. So that'll be fun to try to put together. I may just end up using some of the Super 300 on each side of it to kind of lay it down from Permatex, because that seems to work out pretty well for the diff. So anyways, that's kind of the plan. And then once we have that assembled, I have the bolts to go ahead and bolt this all together. We can then go ahead and place the hub on, which is right here, and the woodruff key, and then we go ahead and torque it down. And then that's going to go ahead and pull all this together. It's going to push the bearing up onto the actual drive shaft itself, or the half shaft rather, and then that'll be nice and good to go. And then at that point, what I can do is put this shock on. I actually will have to remove the shock from up here, slide the shock on this way, and then once that's on, I can go ahead and line it up in here. So I kind of got a little bit ahead of myself by putting this in here, but anyways, not a big deal. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this done. All right, so I cleaned this surface with some degreaser, and now I'm going to take some of this Permatex 300. This is the Permatex Super 300, and it's just kind of a gasket glue. And I'm going to brush it on lightly, avoiding the bearings. We have the paper gasket. Okay, so that can go on like that. Now we have the backer plate. which then goes on like that. And then the cap, which goes on like that. And so now I need to try to get this all to line up so I can try to get some bolts in it. It's a lot to try to do with just two hands. But we should be able to make this happen. All right, we got one in. Let's see, can we get this other? Even if we just get it started, that's a step in the right direction, in my opinion. So, all right, let's go ahead and get these tightened down by hand and keep going. All right, so I ended up having to buy a new Woodruff key because I lost it. So I got this one, and I just had to like do a little bit of grinding on it to just make it fit. But we're just gonna work this guy on in. There we go. I think we're good in that regard. All right, so now what I need to do is get this whole hub assembly area very, 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 very clean. I need to bend these tabs also. That's something else I need to do. And then we're ready to go ahead and put the hub on. So let's get these bent, let's get this clean, and let's install a hub. Alright, so we got those bent. Let's get this guy nice and clean. Alright, so now that we have this nice and clean, I'm going to go ahead and fit the hub on. And we're going to get the hardware placed. And then we'll go ahead and start trying to torque this into place. Alright, so that in itself is not even enough to get it started. Let's see if I can maybe even get a thread. No, I can't even get a thread on there. Hey, there we go. That actually just sat back there nicely. Alright, so I don't have enough to get the washer on to start, but I can at least start with the nut and see if I can start getting this guy pushed back into place, and then what I'll do is take the nut off as I get some more threads, and I'll get this big old washer placed on there. Alright, so that should be enough to start getting it on. What we're doing is we're pushing the whole dang assembly back, including the bearing. I don't want to go too far without having the washer. So, yeah, we're going to have to get a little bit more bite. There we go. Alright. So now, I gotta figure out a way to get this held down. I don't have a 2x4 like my friend Noah recommended I have. So I'm gonna probably end up having to use like a pry tool to put into the hub or the yoke back there to just kind of hold it in place. So let me see what I can come up with. All right, so I got my torque wrench. This needs to go down to 120 foot-pounds. We're just gonna start, and I'm gonna also put my paint scraper back here, and I'll show you. Paint scraper is going right back here. Go ahead and focus. And this is going to maintain as like a gapper to make sure that the grease flinger does not make contact with the rear trunnion hub. As we get closer though, I'll go ahead and put that in and just kind of make sure it's got some good clearance all around. We've got a little ways to go though, so it might be a little tough to get on there to stay. All right, so I was able to get it down to about 120 on the foot-pounds. And like my friend Noah said, you're not really gonna even have as much as a single thread on that. So we got it down, which is good. My only thing is that the grease flinger back here, it's got more of a gap than I thought. But I mean, it seems to be all right. So this should be good. I'll be happy with it. So I've got this one side down. I'm gonna go ahead and at least attach the shock so that's ready to roll. And then, yeah, we'll get the other side done. All right, so I got one side done. I guess it's time to get the other one going. Let's get cracking. Sides on, got them both torqued down to spec. I placed the shocks on just for posterity. I think it's time for me to go ahead and put the leaf spring on. What do you think? I say we go for it. So I've got the springs attached, but now I've got a conundrum. How do I get this to come down? And I don't quite get it. I think that what really needs to happen is that I need to just apply weight on this to pull it down, which will then in situ pull this up and try to like straighten out everything. So this could get entertaining. I'm gonna see if I can try to just maybe get some weight underneath it to kind of start pulling down on it. Because really I would imagine that you would probably do these with like the body on it or something, right? That would make sense. But I don't have that. So let's see if I can get creative. I think I figured it out. It needs some weight on it. Let's get this guy on the ground and see if I can get this spring to get bolted down. I don't think that worked. Well, crap. That was supposed to work. It didn't work. Back to the drawing boards, I guess. How the heck am I going to go ahead and get this thing loaded? The problem is that I need to be able to load the spring, right? I can't load the spring. Now, what I was thinking is maybe if I put the frame up on blocks and then that way I can get a few feet up off the ground and then I can get some weight on this and maybe stand on it. That might help because it needs to really kick the tires out, right? Because it's going to go ahead and give it that negative camber that we need. I got to think about this a little bit more. But hey, it's on wheels for the first time in 8 months, so that's a plus. Let me get back to the drawing board on this and I'll let you know what we come up with. Jack stands. Jack stands, jack stands, jack stands. I got it on jack stands right now. And with relatively decent force, I can actually get that down pretty good. Which gives me hope for maybe doing this tonight. So, let's see what we can do. I've got washers. I've got nuts. I think after lifting that front one though, I may have dropped a nut. But, let's see. Well, that works. But now I can't get to the nuts. What's the solution going to be here? Do I need to stand on this? Well, that's got one. I could back these studs up a little bit. And then that would get me a bit more height. Holy sh**, guys, it's on wheels. This is fantastic. All right, well, that's where we're gonna end this video. Putting those rear trunnions together, getting the hubs on, but most of all, getting that road spring down. Holy cow, that was hard. If I had to do it again and provide advice, I recommend doing is backing out the opposing bolts on the rear end differential, getting a couple of those bolts up, and then just starting to slowly creep them back in. Trying to do what I did before was dumb. I don't know why I didn't think of that to begin with. But it's on the ground. I'm safe. It came out all right. Everything's torqued down to spec. So I guess that's really all that matters. So if there's anything to learn from that, don't do it how I tried doing it before. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit subscribe. Click those bells to get that post notification. And remember, when working on a project car like this, make sure that you work smarter and not harder. And most importantly, don't be that dreaded previous owner. Cheers.